I have been researching and focusing on the SaaS B2B space as an analyst, a writer, and a consultant since late '05. I came out of 25 years in customer support, and when I saw SaaS come up on the horizon, I thought, aha, software companies can no longer afford to play take the money and run. They have to take support seriously now. Well, not for the first time. I was wrong and didn't quite work out that way. It's taken several years, but all of a sudden, when our VC friends start asking questions of new entrepreneurs coming in about, yeah, I understand how you're going to get your customers and acquire your customers. How are you going to keep them? Tell me specifically what you're going to do about customer retention. Now you can understand why you look around and then we have the numbers here that we have today, and it's just exploding all over. There are some resources available to you. The Hotline Magazine Online is one of them. On LinkedIn, there's a forum called, for some reason, the Customer Success Management Forum. I think we crossed 2,600 members today, which probably out of a worldwide population of 5,000, 6,000 isn't all that bad. But back to my friend from lunch, and why I wanted to preface this with a little information, was in my research of interviews and surveys and countless conversations with people all over the world in your role, there's been some things that have stood out. They're all asking the same questions, but they're asking them in a different way, because when you look at a customer success management team, the descriptions of them are all over the map, the processes all over the map, and the reason for that is there's several factors that are different which have an effect on you. One of them, of course, is the product packaging. Are you an all-you-can-eat buffet line for one price, or do you take the cable TV model? If you take the cable TV model, things are going to be different, and the need for customer success managers is higher, because who's going to sell those additional things? Another issue is product complexity, low, medium, or high. The more complex your product is, and we all know this from our own personal use, the more complex your product is, the bigger the investment you need to make in learning how to use it. And if you don't make that investment, you leave. Then there's the market sector. Who are you going after? We find customer success managers from the high end of the B2C, the prosumer end, all the way up through small, medium business B2B and up to the enterprise level B2B. In a pure B2C, you don't find as many. They exist, but you don't find as many of them. And they act differently. Now, the other thing that's kind of relevant in here is I've developed what I call the customer success management maturity model. Everybody starts out as a firefighter. You, and you, we just got a call from a customer. The customer's not going to renew. You guys go fix that or don't come back. And that's how it begins. All of the companies that I've talked to all describe the driver for their customer success management teams as we had to stop churn. So it's okay. If that's where you are, that's fine. Don't think that you're behind the curve, because everybody's still doing that, no matter how far up you've progressed. The next level up is where I call facilitators, where you get involved in implementation and training to make sure the customer onboards properly. Third level after that is more account managers, keeping track of the renewals. And then after that is the ownership level, because one of the biggest challenges facing SaaS companies today is the lack of an authentically designated and measured owner of the ongoing customer relationship. If you ask them, most of the time they say, well, sales owns it. But sales closes the deal and then it doesn't come back in until much later. Sometimes they'll say, support owns it. But if you look at the metrics for support, you discover that they're closing cases and tracking escalations. They are not tracking renewals, and they are not tracking making the customer successful in their usage of the product. So as I said, there's those four levels, and the questions that come up are about, how do I define the customer success management role in my company? That familiar to anybody? Do you define it? Is it just something that grew like support did? The ownership issue is another biggie. In the area of process, we have interaction channels and interaction classes. Which channel do you use for which kinds of interactions? That's something everybody's working out. Nobody has the answer to that. In terms of people, the things that I hear commonly quoted are scalability. How am I going to scale this operation? Where should the CSM team report to? What other functions should be assigned to the CSM team? And then we've got technology, which is get the data, analyze the data, and disseminate the data to those who need it. So that's kind of the pieces of the puzzle. I wanted to make sure that we kind of started off on the same page when we started talking about best practices, because what's best is going to be different between what kind of a CSM and what kind of a company you are. So to look into some questions and to give you, and frankly, all we can do, we could spend a week on this, and we got 30 minutes, 26 minutes and a half now. All we can really do is give you some ideas, pieces of a vision, establish some connections, begin conversations that will continue after this event. You can get me through the hotline, you can get me through the forum. Some of the other members of my panel are on the forum as well. Post your questions and share your answers, share your expertise. So as I said, there's a wide range of approaches, strategies, pieces of the puzzle, and tactics to be found in our CSM community. So to help us look at them, we've got 3 panelists who come from different backgrounds. Badgeville is a user behavior platform. It uses gamification to measure and influence user behavior for a very wide range of industries and companies. And Catherine Blackmore is the Vice President of Customer Success. Eloqua, have we heard that name before today? I think we have.
Yeah. Yep.
Eloqua is an Oracle company, a marketing automation vendor. It takes companies in a number of industries, from lead generation to business intelligence and revenue performance management. And Kia Poom is the Vice President of Customer Experience. YouSendIt is a file collaboration service for both consumers and enterprises, spanning simple file sharing to complete collaboration services, and it enables users to share, sign, and access content on computers and devices anywhere. Abhay Rajaram is the Vice President of Customer Success. So as you can see, we've got a range of experiences and insights here. So let me start off with, do you develop a growth plan for each customer? If so, who's responsible for developing it? What does it look like? And what's the process for achieving it? Because that's a best practice. Kia, we'll start with you.
Sure. So just to give a bit of context of something we did at Eloqua about 2 or 3 years ago, we took a whole look at what is an ideal customer experience, and we called it the ICE initiative, and we really looked at how do we reorg and restructure to make sure that we're delivering a seamless experience. We had done a voice of the customer third-party study and a voice of the industry, so benchmarked ourselves against best-of-breed SaaS companies, and we were looking, how do we cover the account? How do we make sure that our customers are successful? The customer experience group is directly responsible for that adoption and making sure that the renewal rate is holding steady and or obviously growing. One of the things that we do specifically in terms of measuring the successes with our customers, in marketing automation, it really is a journey for marketers to become those modern marketers. And we talk to them about what their business objectives are, and we map them to a success plan. So we have a maturity model that we know that marketers go through as they're going through their journey, and we have core competencies that they need to execute in their marketing automation journey. And so we take their business objectives and we map it directly to the tactics that they're going to have to execute within the software to make sure that they're successful and that they're continuing to adopt. And so that success plan is a foundational element that we use throughout the entire relationship, and it's not just the what we call our marketing experts or CSM equivalents, but the other folks in the customer experience organization, product support, data analysts, our updates team, they all look at that success plan to give the context of what the customer is doing, so that when we are engaging, the whole team is engaging with that customer, we continually go back to the context of what are the business objectives they're trying to achieve.
Catherine?
I think like Kia, I think it's important to provide context. Badgeville celebrated its 2nd birthday late last year. And as a result, when you're that early in the market, it's really about understanding the path towards growth. And so how we think about it is really along the line of a customer success hierarchy. And so when we start engaging with the customer, at the very beginning, we're hopeful that if sales does their job correctly, we actually have a satisfied customer. But as we know in the room, that doesn't always happen. So being able to really understand when a customer starts the journey with you, what are your escalations? What are some of the concerns that they're having? And how can we get them to a satisfied state? And being able to measure that and making sure that we're achieving that first goal. And then as you think about moving up the hierarchy, you think about, okay, a satisfied customer, it's one that leads you to the path of renewal. We've heard a lot about how important it is to retain customers. And how do we actually exit that satisfied period to where we can actually move a customer to a loyal state? And then as we even move up to the highest rung, which we consider advocacy, advocacy is tightly linked and coupled to growth and growing that account. And so what's that path? When we exit that renewal conversation, what are the things we have to do then to build their advocacy? And not just about expanding upon what they're using the product for today, but being an evangelist and helping walk us into other areas of their business. And that's where we see those two coming into play. Now, similar to Kia, being able to understand the life cycle of how your customers are using their product and having really that maturity model is something we very much are looking into and will be adopting. But for where we are right now, it's just so important that we understand this really basic model and making sure that all of our customers are on that journey towards evangelism and growth.
Abhay, you've got quite a range of customer types. Do you do a plan for each customer type, or does it go down to the individuals?
We have a dedicated plan for each of our 40 million users, yes. I'm just kidding.
I almost believed it for a second there.
Thank you. So the interesting thing with YouSendIt, of course, is we have such a wide range of customers. We have a whole lot of folks that are individual users, we have SMBs, lines of businesses, and we have some of the Fortune 50 companies using our product. And when you talk about the freemium business model, when you talk about the consumerization of IT, we're kind of living that and breathing that on a daily basis. So when you think about an individual that comes and uses YouSendIt as a one-time user with no direct connection to their credit card, the growth plan there is to make sure that they get to use the product effectively, efficiently. And then it's actually a marketing function to see how we can take individuals to a plan that they may consider finding enough value that they pay us for it. As we continue to grow that and as we kind of leverage the consumerization of IT, we engage with business leaders and IT organizations to see if there's value for them to drive usage of YouSendIt. That's where customer success has a more direct touch with our customers. And at the simplest level, like you described, it's all about starting off on the right foot. And so our growth plan for our customers starts with the deployment. Make sure that you're starting off with a well-defined 30, 60, 90-day plan, almost project manage that deployment, so that the customer, A, sees immediate value in what they purchase from you, and then B, the users that are actually the key to your success, not necessarily the decision maker, are finding value on the product on a daily basis. If you do that right, the growth plan comes automatically.
Great. Well, most of our audience still seems to be with us. The real question is how much attention are they paying? There was a couple topics this morning, and there was a question that I really wanted to ask, and I reminded myself, Michael, you're a guest. Keep your mouth shut. Okay. So I want to see a show of hands out there. How many of you are from companies that have never, ever had a customer that should never have been a customer? No bad customers ever? Is there anybody? I don't see any. Do you see any hands out there?
I see a few
Have we got
there.
one? Yeah, maybe two.
Oh, wait.
I know. See, they were really listening. How about that? All right. There are some customers that should never have been customers in the first place. They come in the door covered in warning signs only. Nobody's paying attention to those warning signs. What I want to ask is, what have you learned from dealing with those customers, and how do you use that knowledge? And Catherine, that one's yours to lead with.
Thank you. And I think it really comes with experience and knowing how to start asking those tough questions when you walk in the door. And my philosophy is that if we could afford to have a customer success manager or an account manager the day that a deal was sold, right when a company is formed, then I think that's the very first step of making sure that a customer will renew. Because as we all know in the room, a deal is renewed upon that salesperson having that right conversation, setting the right expectations. And so what we've learned, what I learned previously when I worked at Jigsaw that was acquired by Salesforce, and what we did at Salesforce, and then what we're doing today is really having solid metrics around what do our escalations look like, what are the leading indicators of churn, what are the reasons for churn. We heard all the VCs talking about how important that is. But what we really learned is that so much of what's happening in a new market and a new product are the reps perhaps setting missed expectations. Perhaps there's things that we're learning about what really is a successful customer that we want to do something about. We don't want to just accept these deals and try to make these customers successful because we own this number, this renewal number, and when we know that at the end of the day, it's how we could possibly influence sales that'll have the biggest impact. So one of the things we've done, and I know a lot of companies have early warning systems, things that they do to learn about churn and actually prevent churn or react to it. I don't know how many companies, though, are actually looking at that in the sales cycle and actually doing something about it at inception. So one of the things we've done is actually taken the early warning system and putting it within the sales process. We actually have a method of measuring deal health at the point of it being sold and at different stages. If we know it, just by knowing the way that our product's adopted and questions that reps should be asking, that if things are answered certain ways, we know that this could have a higher churn risk. And as a result, if a deal isn't green, we're not going to do it. Or I should say, if it's red or yellow, we need to change something in the contract. Maybe it's the deal terms that need to change. Maybe there's additional services they need to buy to make sure that they're successful with the way that they want to deploy our product. So there's things that we are actually doing in the sales cycle to create healthier clients. And it's a cross-functional effort. It's not just me. I don't just own this. But the whole company is so committed to making sure that we don't have a leaky bucket, that it's something that we've taken all the way through our whole system. And I actually do have veto power. I can actually say that I don't think we should do this deal. And that's just been very innovative and very novel for our company. And it's helped really improve retention.
Could I offer that option to either of you?
Sure. I can talk about how one thing that we've done to align sales and making sure that they do set expectations, and I agree full-heartedly about them it being a very important piece of that puzzle, is we offer a money-back guarantee. So if our customers take our Quick Start that Roger had talked about earlier, or Smart Start, it's our onboarding program that makes sure that they are onboarded correctly, get them started really at the very beginning, right when they've signed the deal. There's high excitement. Get them into the system as quickly as possible so we can see those usage metrics. If within the first 6 months they are not happy and they have taken this program, which they paid for, then they can walk away from the deal, no questions asked, and get their money back. And there is a clawback for the sales reps. So they are highly incentivized to make sure that they are not selling a deal to a customer if it doesn't make sense for them to be selling that deal to. So that helps align in terms on the sales side. And then after we have that Smart Start, we do start our Success Coach program with customers. And so we will recognize very early on whether they have just bought software or they are seriously looking at creating a revenue performance management strategy within their company. They're serious about what they're going to do with marketing automation and their journey. And so as we see warning signs there, we will tweak the program as needed and or even upsell in certain cases if we can and if it's appropriate in terms of education or training or bringing in some services, paid for professional services to help them out. And then later on in the life cycle as well, I mean, we have our technical support, product support that helps out and looks at sort of warning flags. We have a comprehensive and holistic view of our accounts for all the resources that cover those accounts, so they can use the various the data that they see about that account to give them warning signs and help within the context of what they're trying to achieve. And then finally, we did bring in Gainsight at the end of last year, and we do have alerts set and have a new role that we set up specifically to reach out to customers on a proactive basis. So before they even call us reactively about some sort of issue they may have, we do set alerts on hours logged into the system or NPS scores or number of cases that they open. And we have also set the threshold of those alerts differently depending on the segment that customer might fall in. We do have a segmentation model. So depending on those triggers might be pulled quicker depending on, let's say the renewal is coming up sooner than later. Things like that will trigger it, and we will reach out to the customer and or pull the account management team on board and let them know that we've seen these types of alerts so that they will reach out to that customer. So throughout the entire life cycle of the customer, from start to finish, we really make sure that we've got a holistic overview and interaction at all aspects to keep monitoring the various types of metrics that talk to us about the health.
In a room with customer success professionals, I don't think anyone will say, I have a bad customer. They might say, you have a difficult customer, right? Two very quick things from my perspective. I think one is, as we continue our conversation, one of the keys to our team, keys to success to our team is insights that we get from our customers, right? And if you leverage that effectively to what you mentioned, Catherine, we actually engage with the sales team before the deal is closed, not right after, right before the deal is going to be closed. And so leveraging those insights gives you an opportunity to identify the challenge that may be awaiting you.
Abhay, you've got something in our conversations preparing for this panel. There was a question I really wanted you to get at, because I think in some ways it's common to all of us, but you've got a different perspective on it, which is under the heading of the process of customer success management, where you've got access channels and interactions. With your wide range of different customer types, how do you set that up? I mean, do you offer, and for my support days, it was, do we offer phone support? Is it only email? Is it only, on the website or something? But which channels do you use for which customer types?
Absolutely, and it's an interesting challenge or opportunity for us, given the range of our customers. We actually support all of our customers, including the free customers. We offer different levels of support, of course, because we need to be able to scale effectively to provide the right level of support for a customer that's engaging with us on an ongoing basis without paying us anything, or a Fortune 5 customer that has spent 7 figures with us. What we also do to take that to the next level is the way we engage with our customers proactively has a slightly different tinge to it. Again, there's marketing-related email-based communication for the vast majority. And then there's a lot of people-based proactive engagements with the larger organizations. We do something very similar with support as well, where we go all the way with 24/7 support for our largest, most strategic customers, and sort of dial it down based on the level of relationship and engagement with our customers.
Kia, Catherine, do you play in those areas with different channels for different types of customers?
We do. I think our approach, though, is that right now we're touching our customers in a number of ways. And I think what we're building is certainly more of the proactive automation and the nurturing of these relationships, so it's not just people. And I think because, I think it was mentioned earlier, when you're really early, we're at that stage where we just have to swarm, and we just have to really be high touch and make sure that our customers are successful. And you can't really get to that point of automation until you really have done that. And so we're in that phase right now where we're learning, we're understanding what are the critical milestones that make or break a customer using your product. Who are all the people touching that product? And are there different conversations we need to be having with the developer versus the business owner? And what have been successful conversations versus maybe less successful interactions? And then when we take all of that learning, then how can we build that into the community that we're putting a lot of attention and content into, and direct people towards different paths in the community, or certainly proactive outreach via marketing, campaigns, et cetera. That's in the future, but right now it has to be high touch. It has to be about just understanding, what will be the future when we can have a lower touch model.
So interesting. One of the things that we did as part of that ICE initiative is we needed to, as part of scaling and our growth, move out of that high touch model. We had now done all that, but in terms of our ability to scale with the rate of growth that they were doing, we had to take a look at a different coverage model on the account. So we did take a look at the segmentation of our customers. We segmented them based on a scale that was sort of the amount of spend that they had on the product. So was there still more spend potential? And then marketing maturity, and then we segmented accordingly. And we also looked at what are the needs in each of those segments of the customer so that we could scale back on the amount of human resources that we had on various different segments, but not scale back on what they needed, so that every segment and every customer was getting the appropriate amount of need that they had at their stage of maturity, as opposed to just doing a one-size-fits-all. And so we had a different level of account coverage per segment, and then doing it in using various channels. And we used our own product to nurture customers and keep in touch with them that way. Part of the customer experience group also consists of a customer enablement team, which is solely responsible for things like building up a knowledge base and how do you productize the knowledge that is very reproducible, that when a customer is just starting off, there's the standard challenges that they might have. So how can you productize that so that you're leaving the real complex, very case-by-case specific challenges to the human interaction of that advisor, that CSM equivalent, and spending time there. And then, looking at channels of, obviously, there's the phone support and portals, and we're looking at, live chats and those types of things too, to see how we can continue to scale and right-size the amount of help that we offer at all different stages.
We're getting down towards, we've got about 4 minutes left. I've got one more question that's the most common question asked of me anywhere, but I'm quite sure somebody out there is going to ask for it, so I'm going to toss it out to you. Questions? They might have gone to sleep. Back there.
How many customers do your CSMs handle?
Okay.
That's a great question.
Yeah.
So that was another thing that we took a look at when we were through that ICE initiative and segmenting. So it really depended on the segment. So some of our key larger accounts, they might handle 10 to 15 accounts, and then on a smaller scale where we're more the SMB type of customer, they could have upwards of 100 or so accounts, and they've got a team where we direct them to self-assisted type of tools. The account coverage is something that is continually being looked at. That is a very challenging thing to handle in that. We're continually learning how we should handle that.
I think technologies like Gainsight kind of help us balance those, right? And when you're dealing with some really strategic customers, you kind of do the math, and if you as a CSM try and handle more than 25 to 30 of those customers, you're sort of peanut buttering across the board. But what technologies like Gainsight do offer you is the opportunity to focus on the ones that are either at highest risk or the ones that have the highest potential. And then across the board, leverage the types of technologies that you'd use to handle your SMB customers. So if an SMB customer gets a touch every month, there's no reason that users or the owners at a large enterprise does not get that touch, but you want to layer that on with the more personal touch. But to answer your question, 25 to 50, depending on how strategic the customers are.
I would agree, and I think that you also have to look at a couple of extra things, which are what are you asking your customer success managers to do? Because that will largely dictate, how much time they need with each account. You also have to look at how complex the accounts are. For some of our largest customers, just because it's one logo, it may mean like 20 accounts, just based on how complex it is and how many different projects we have going on. And certainly revenue is another component. And also I think it was mentioned about how do you pitch for more money around investing, and I think we're always having that dialogue with our CFO, with our head of finance around what our coverage models need to look like, what our ratios need to look like, and it is around retention rates, renewal rates. What would renewal rates look like if we were actually had this person manage fewer accounts? Could we improve not just the retention, but maybe the negative churn, the actual growth of this customer if they only focused on this one relationship? So that's just part of that.
Yeah, I think there is no magic answer again, because you touched upon something important. It depends on the complexity of your product as well, right?
And we introduced sort of this technical account management type of role that would have just one or two accounts and specifically had a much more expanded role. So it really does depend on the complexity.
As I said, we could spend a week, at least a day, on this, and by my counter, we're out of time. So we need to move on to the next session. Please join us on the forum. All of this has been discussed in various flavors on the forum, and it's available to you constantly. So thank you all.